Today, we're thrilled to welcome Colleen Randal to the podcast. Colleen is a principal partner and chief operating officer at Initium Softworks, a company specializing in process automation solutions. With over 2 decades of experience in the software and consulting industries, she brings extensive expertise in enterprise content management and business process automation. Colleen is here to share her insights on digital transformation and automation in today's financial and business landscape. Welcome, Colleen. We're thrilled to have you here today.
Happy to be
You
here.
bring a wealth of experience in content services and automation, and we're excited to dive into your journey and insights. Let's start with your career journey. You began over 2 decades ago in content services. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started and what drew you into this field initially?
I think it was one of those lucky kids that had access to computers pretty early on, starting in second grade. And I'm going to date myself too. We started out with the Apple II computers, doing some general coding and graphic design stuff that was a lot of fun. And it really piqued my interest starting there. And then throughout middle school and high school, I kind of ended high school right when the internet was taking off and going into college. So that was a super exciting time. Even though my coursework in college was more focused on business and operational efficiency, I had an opportunity to work at AAA in a various number of roles. I actually started out in road service and auto travel. Once I was in college, working in their business systems department. And there I was able to do QA. I was able to do some solution design and testing, that exposure to that development life cycle. It really piqued my interest on how we could improve the end user experience when using software.
So you've worked in content services for 23 years or so, helping businesses organize and automate their workflows. And I've been a lucky participant inside of that and seeing you work. As I watch you work, it reminds me of Marie Kondo's philosophy of decluttering to spark joy. Have you found that helping organizations streamline their content and processes leads to a similar sense of relief or efficiency for them?
Absolutely. I think it's the same sense of relief everybody has when you clear out your garage finally. You can see everything and you know where it is. You know exactly how to get to it. So I think Marie Kondo's approach to organization and decluttering is very applicable to the document management space. There are a lot of our customers and organizations that have treated ACM or document management like that dreaded junk drawer or the corner of the garage that nobody wants to clear out. Just like at home when you're throwing things into the drawer that were important enough that you didn't want to throw them away, but because you have not put that into a place that it can be easily accessed, it's lost to you. So the idea is for us to come in and help you find those items, look at them, find out if they are truly anything that you want to continue to use, or if they need to be removed. We could talk about retention and retention policies, but there are legal implications to both retaining and proving that you don't have documents any longer.
You bring in a spark of joy when you come into different projects. So always a pleasure to work with you. Going back to where you are now, Initium Softworks, your current role and responsibilities. So you're now the principal and chief operating officer. I'm curious, what does a typical day look like for you in this role? And what are some of the primary responsibilities that you oversee?
Well, I've got a lot of different hats at the moment. As you mentioned, as COO, I'm tasked with operational oversight. And one of the things that we've been talking about was actually operational efficiency. And we're trying to apply that to our own house. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. So we try to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. I focus on improving operations and our process improvement. We drive a lot of our internal processes and workflows through our document management tools so that there's automation, there's audit tracking, and we have accountability and assigning tasks and being able to trigger folks if things are being missed. So similar workflow processes that are happening in any organization, we're focused on applying those in-house as well. Our goal is to make sure that everybody on our team knows what their roles and responsibilities are and has easy access to the documentation they need to complete their job and any of the tools that are required there. So we go back on a regular basis. I would say as often as quarterly to go back and look at our processes, see what we're doing right, see what we could be improving upon. And then we definitely want to also involve the team members as well. So it's not just, everybody at the top making those decisions. We want to see what the user experience is, meaning our employees and team members, and then account for that potentially enhancing our own processes.
I have seen it myself. So with 21 years in content services and experience across roles like solution engineering, consulting, and project management, you've really seen the field evolve.
Mhm.
How have these roles shaped your approach to content services and automation?
I think one of the things about being a part of a lot of different roles, and also I think the work experience I had to go out for most of the client projects we had and learn people's jobs, not just take note, but actually understand how they were performing their jobs. And that was the best way for us to try to determine how we could improve the user experience, try to give them more tools. So for me, having all of that experience in different roles, it makes me empathetic. And I think I've had to, you can learn to be curious. And I think that
Mhm.
I have a lot of natural curiosity to begin with. But I think continuing to be curious is probably one of the most important things that you can have. I think once you become disinterested and dispassionate, then maybe it's time to move on and do something else. Luckily, I'm 24 years in and I am as passionate or more so than when I started.
Well, it shows. And you know what's amazing is that you've completed over 300 content services projects, which is a very large number. One stands out to me because they just reached out to me and said, I've never had a project manager who's so uh, good at their job as Colleen. And this is one of the largest transportation companies in the United States that we are working with right now. And I can imagine they themselves have been involved with hundreds, potentially thousands of projects. And for them to come to me and say that you are probably the best project manager that they've had yet is very powerful. Now, for you, is there one or maybe more than one project that stands out as particularly impactful or memorable? And if so, what made it unique?
First of all, that checks in the mail to that customer. I had a number of projects. I think the one that's probably the most memorable for me was one that I had during my time at Fiserv. And that was helping Tesco. For those of us that aren't familiar with the UK, they're kind of like if Walmart and Target had a baby, you have Tesco.
Hmm.
They bought a portion of RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, and we're looking to stand up a bank. We worked with the Nautilus or on-base product team along with Fiserv in East Africa to help them stand up the bank. It was a really interesting project. It was one of the ones that I'm really thrown into spearhead on my own. So there was a lot of additional responsibility and kind of an unknown. It was both exciting and terrifying at the same time. We had a lot of different moving parts. I had to work with multiple business units. I was meeting somebody new every day, and all of those people wanted something from me. I think trying to make sure that I was managing our team on shore, the folks that were joining and kind of dipping in and out of the project. I ended up being the hub on that wagon wheel that kept things spinning while other people came in and out of the project. I had a really good team of folks to work with on all sides. I just think it was a huge growth experience for me to have everything thrown at me, kind of that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And that was that experience.
How do you bring that spark of joy, that Marie Kondo spark of joy to a project like that?
I think you have to approach it with enthusiasm because it's definitely not to just throw around euphemisms. It was definitely like drinking from the fire hose, to be sure. I always joke around that my superpower is staying calm in emergencies. And I think that I just kind of had to step away from what I was concerned or nervous about and then practically say, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? What are the most critical tasks that we need to accomplish? How do I prioritize these? And some of those were decisions I can make on my own. Some of those had different stakeholders in the project that had to weigh in. I think just like you said, being calm and making sure that I had involved just the appropriate decision makers in the process was the biggest thing. There were a lot of moving parts, a lot of things to learn, and a lot of unknowns. So I had to be enthusiastic and willing to step into the breach and hold up my hand and volunteer to figure it out. And that's what it is at the end of the day. There was no manual or rule book for this type of project. It was something that I had to figure out as we went. I was up for the challenge, thankfully, and it ended up turning out really well. And it was a hugely exciting time.
Yeah, there's some big names that you're dealing with there as well. So
Mhm.
I can imagine the stress level was up for all. And being such a complex content management, content services, and automation is always complex and always evolving. And with those changes in content services and automation over the years, what are some of the biggest shifts that you've observed in the industry, especially around enterprise content management and business process management?
Sure. I think the biggest shift from my perspective is that instead of treating, ECM or content management system as kind of a giant file cabinet or a bucket to throw documents in, we've evolved past that. That was definitely a huge need to organize documents and make them accessible to users. Now we're talking about how to actually use the documents and the data from those documents to improve business processes and efficiency. It's the given that we're going to be scanning and storing documents. Now the question is, what do we do with those documents once they come into the system? How are they interacting with other line of business applications? And how can we, in some cases, automate some of the manual processes that users were having to have before when working with those?
Yeah, and it all becomes so strategic.
Mhm.
I know you're one of the best at coming in and drawing out a roadmap. Share some insights into what goes into building a roadmap for organizations looking to implement or expand automation.
The end result of a strategic analysis engagement is a clear and actionable map that allows us to align the capabilities we provide with our ECM solution with the goals of the organization and to ensure we've improved efficiency, are accounting for the regulatory compliance, and that we're optimizing that content management system for future use. So we meet with the department stakeholders and we're going to talk through them with interviews, potentially workshops to document what those needs are and identify challenges, and then ultimately the goals of the organization. We'll look at all of the existing tool sets that are in place. So it can be our software, potentially recommending replacement software or other tools or processes that are going to better capture content and organize and share that data across the organization. We look at all of the functionality, any opportunities for integration, how we can better scale the solution, and then what the current effectiveness is of the ECM solution and what the proposed improvements are going to be from there. We look again at efficiency, compliance, and most importantly, I think regulatory requirements that are going to impact all of those needs. The first thing we do is perform that current state assessment. And then what we're going to then provide from there is going to be, this is where we are. This is what we believe you should be in a future state. And then that important middle part, because I've seen these a lot of times, you get these recommendations documents saying, here's where you are now, here's what you should do. But it's a sandwich with two slices of bread and nothing in the middle. So we try to put the meat and cheese in there and give people a real plan for how to actually achieve those goals and then work with them to prioritize those goals for the organization.
Right, because a lot of times we deal with companies, large and small,
Mhm.
who have this complex product, complex solution, and they don't have a roadmap
Mhm.
to meet their strategic
Mhm.
objectives and return value on
Mhm.
their investment. Time and time again, we see them use enterprise content management as
Mhm.
just storage of documents when it can offer so much more, as you just stated, really drive their
Mhm.
company to a digital transformation. It can be very strategic.
I think absolutely that a lot of times people know in general that they want to improve, but they're not necessarily sure how they want to
Mhm.
improve. So we'll go in sometimes and there will be very specific goals for an engagement. And that's great because it makes it a little simpler for us. We kind of know what we need to focus on. And certainly we might identify or discover other needs or requirements along the way. But I would say it's more common for somebody to come in and say, hey, here this thing is, take a look. And it's literally, boxes full of papers and help us figure this out with no general idea of what needs to be done or what their goals are. And the process that we go through in that strategic analysis tends to really distill that down pretty quickly.
One of the services that you're so good at is the taxonomy service,
Mhm.
which really, in my eyes, is the blueprint for anybody who's going to build a comprehensive
Mhm.
system. If you're using it for storage, how are you going to retain the documents? How are you going to start to implement workflow? How would you be able to integrate into other systems and exchange data. So that taxonomy service becomes very important. What value have you found for our clients inside that type of service?
I think it's huge. I'm in the middle of one now with a customer who has gone through, I think, no less than 12 different mergers and acquisitions of
Mhm.
different financial institutions.
Amazing.
So no one person knows what all the documents are for. And I've literally met with 15 different process owners for different segments of documents. And as part of that process, we went from 8,000 plus document types down to a little over 2,400. That process can be very overwhelming when you're looking at it from the inside.
Mhm.
Having somebody come out externally and say, okay, what is this? Why are you keeping it? What is it for? Could it be consolidated with these other document types? Shouldn't it be split out into something else? Do you need to retain these? Do you have a retention policy? There are lots of questions that I can ask as an external party and come in and not ruffle feathers, which can be difficult. It's something that I'm able to dig through pretty quickly. And thankfully, it's something I enjoy doing.
Something that's so important for a company that really may not even know where to start or how to circle back and
Mhm.
try to achieve the objectives that they once bought that product for.
Absolutely. I didn't come out of the Cabbage Patch knowing exactly how to do it. I'd
Mm.
say that I've definitely learned along the way. And obviously, that experience has let me make good recommendations or ask probing questions that just may not occur to somebody else. So I'm grateful for that experience.
So your certifications include on-base DocuWare and Microsoft technologies.
Mhm.
How important have these certifications been to your career? And would you recommend them for those entering the field?
Huge. I think that the really great thing that I've discovered over time, when I started at Pfizer, for example, when I was working with on-base and other products, they were focused very much on financial services and that industry. I became kind of an expert, at least in understanding those business processes and those types of documents. But going to the certification training at Highland at DocuWare, they are touching lots of different industries. What I would learn would pique my interest. They would be putting together different solutions for different industries. It would get my wheels turning and make me start thinking about how potentially even something that was built for an architecture firm could apply to the customers that I currently have. It's just a piece of functionality that I had never used. So if I hadn't gone through the certification classes, I could have chugged along and continued to do the things that I knew and that I was comfortable with. Keeping those certifications up, learning about new tool sets that are out there. It's not just a value to me, but it's a huge value to our customers because they're benefiting from all of that certification of learning as well.
Right? Which is a lot of the feedback that we hear from them. And really one of the key drivers for them engaging us is our knowledge and you to come in and get them on budget and
Mhm.
on time. So really, you know, if you're looking at key skills for success and for people who are aspiring to enter this content management services and automation industry,
Mhm.
what key skills and competencies do you think are essential for success in this industry?
The first one was actually my favorite course in college, Be a Good Listener, and a full course, an entire semester just on listening. It was one of the best courses I ever took. My professor actually writes books, Rick Baumolge, he's a fantastic guy. And it is critical to this job. You cannot successfully define or design a new solution or fix a current problem without thoroughly understanding the need and also the issue. You have to not only ask questions, but really listen to the answers. It's not only just listening to what people say, but it's listening to what they don't say. Because sometimes the important stuff is left out. And if you're really paying attention and you're really listening, those things tend to appear. I think the other thing too, and I mentioned this before about curiosity, but being willing to learn in order to be successful in this industry and certainly any other, you have to be willing to learn. And in this case, I have to be willing to learn somebody else's job. Or I really do need to understand how they're performing their job, what their requirements are, and then ultimately what we can do and what our solutions can do to improve their experience. My happiest time, honestly, is when I make the person that's sitting at a desk and doing their day-to-day work happy, but even more so than the C-suite folks, when those folks have their life improved by something we're doing, we're improving people's lives by offering the better solutions. I think that's important. Be creative. The cool part about the ECM application and the tools that we have are that something that, it's technology and it can, seem dry to people. but I'm amazed by how much opportunity I have to be super creative in designing solutions for people, kind of thinking outside of the box and finding new tools and new ways of doing things and getting people that in some cases are maybe a little bit jaded, jazzed about doing their job again. So those are the three things: listen, learn, and be creative.
That's awesome. Inside of that, you get a lot of challenges and lessons that you've learned. So, in your experience, what are some of the common challenges that organizations face when implementing content services or automation solutions? And how do you typically address these challenges?
I think the biggest one that I see for us is lack of buy-in. And this can happen at any level, but it's more important that we have buy-in at the executive sponsor level because
Hmm.
adherence starts typically from the top down. We do have the odd end user that is very excited about their job and enthusiastic. But for the most part, when change is thrust upon us, particularly when we're super busy, you don't necessarily want to learn a new tool or change the way that we're doing things because we already knew how to do it, right? So I think it's super important to have engagement from executive level, if that's your C-suite, but also managers, team leaders, and kind of demonstrating or, walking the walk, not just talking the talk, and getting folks engaged in the process. Deal with and continue to deal with people that are maybe a little reluctant to change. And those are usually my favorite people. They're usually the squeaky wheel. I always say we're going in and looking at workflow processes, for example, and they're like, what should we prioritize? I say, well, go find the most unhappy person in here. I want to sit down and work with them because once you get them on board, they're going to be your biggest cheerleader.
Right. Yeah. Make them
Um,
passionate about it.
Absolutely. And I think lack of engagement when we do requirements gathering and solution design is also a huge issue because if we get half-hearted responses when we are trying to put together requirements and documentation, then we get a half-baked solution. Even if it's built to spec, if we're not getting all the information, then we're only building a solution for part of the need. So that one's huge.
So, looking to the future, do you see content services and ECM solutions evolving in a way that's more enjoyable and empowering for users? And how can we, as an industry, make these tools feel as rewarding as they are practical?
I think we're already seeing the enhanced customer experience now with AI. It's helping banks doing data analytics to help personalize services for customers. You've probably seen it when you've logged into your bank, tailored financial advice, recommendations for products, real time offers. They're all based on an analysis of your behavior, how you're currently working with their products and the product sets. It's making it easier from a marketing standpoint that some of those processes can be automated just based on customer analytics. So I think that's exciting. Chatbots and virtual assistants, I think, are huge. We even have a cool chatbot on the ISW website in case anybody wants to go check that one out. Those virtual assistants and chatbots can give you information in the click of a button that sometimes you would have to sit and wait on hold for 25 minutes.
Mm.
Don't get me wrong, we all sometimes still like to speak to the person, but a lot of times there are things that you can get right from that chatbot that can actually address those things around the clock. That's an increased cost efficiency for companies too, to be able to provide that information to customers, and it improves customer satisfaction as well. Also, AI is allowing us to automate some of the KYC, the know your customer processes that used to slow down onboarding time where you had to gather up documents to put that information together. Automation is continuing to help us actually streamline back office operations. So things like data entry that before you had to employ all these people to go in there, they're clicking away at keyboards. OCR and ICR, intelligent capture, is able to extract important information off of documents. And that text rendition can then be used for search purposes, but also for data mining to potentially even auto-populate future documents that a customer or even somebody internal may need to fill out. In the lending organization, and these have been in place for a long time, AUSs are automated underwriting systems. They use AI-driven information to do credit scoring and underwriting of loans. You used to have to fill out tons and tons of paperwork, but now you can fill out a form online and get an immediate decision on loans. So I just think that's going to continue to improve over time. There's lots of new product innovation out there, improved regulatory compliance too, because there's more of a compliance burden out there for financial industries. And because we have access to that data, because we can define retention policies and automate the evaluation and purging of those documents, That's huge. Somebody's not having to go through file cabinets or network folders and make that determination. The system has the ability to fly those and then also to run the evaluation and purge in an automated fashion and provide an audit trail that can be used for legal purposes. If somebody comes looking for those documents, most of the time with compliance, it's more important to prove that you don't have the documents sometimes
Mhm.
than that you do. So that's huge. And I think, as I've been alluding to, all of those things are creating huge shifts in the workforce and saw that even pre-pandemic. You've got a lot of people that are more remote and being able to access work remotely, but also to automate some of those manual data entry things that were taking up tons and tons of office space can now be performed at home, and it's freeing up people to perform less mundane tasks.
Mm.
It's a huge thing. It's very exciting. Also helping with data privacy and security as well. We have the ability to secure data now when it's in transit. We can secure data when you're looking at documents. Let's say you're authorized to look at a document, but you're only authorized to look at certain portions. We can automate redactions of those documents. Other users within the organization that may need to see the entire document would be able to see that unredacted version as well, and provide an audit trail for who's actually viewed those documents in their entirety. Integration is probably the biggest shift. The ability to take ECM applications like OnBase or DocuWare and to use tools like our Data Sync tool to integrate across the board to virtually any application. Opportunities are endless.
It's very powerful.
Mhm.
Integrating into all these different systems today is one of the big benefits to our clients. Looking ahead, what are your goals for ISW in the coming years? And are there any new directions or innovations in content services that you're really excited to explore?
I think I'm both excited and a little scared. The opportunities are really endless. I think we should be cautious at the same time. There's definitely a push in that direction as well to make sure that we're regulating that properly. I think AI is super exciting. I'm curious to see how it evolves. I think it's going to provide tools for our work and our personal life. I know workflow process automation is going to, I think it's going to explode with AI and the ability to generate those workflows, I think, dynamically is going to be huge. I also think in terms of where I want to see us go is to focus more on process automation and also focusing on managed services for customers that are downsizing staff, but still have a need to perform system administration. So I want to make sure that we're able to offer that service to folks. You get experienced administrative staff that aren't on staff and that can be used on demand. And again, I think I touched on this and you can tell it's a passion of mine, but doing more strategic analysis for our customers, current customers and new ones, and helping them build a better, more efficient business.
Well, that is awesome. And I think what we need is a little advice for the next generation. So, for those just starting their careers in content services and automation or project management, what advice would you give? Are there any pitfalls they should be aware of or opportunities they should look out for?
I mentioned this before in general, but I encourage people in all areas of their life, but certainly work to be curious and to really understand what people are asking for. So when you speak to a customer, understand their job, what they're doing, what they're working with, and what their needs are. Do not try to jam a square peg into a round hole. Your solution should fit their needs, not the other way around. You definitely want to be a solution. So your solution can be made to fit their problem, not the other. The other thing, I think I mentioned before about listening, there's that saying that there's a reason God gave us two ears and one mouth. You should always strive to listen more than you speak. And that's going to keep you open to better understanding others. And I think being really knowledgeable and insightful in every process.
Well, in talking of all these projects, there's a lot of stress, a lot of deadlines. And with such a demanding role as being a project manager or overseeing all these projects, I imagine balance is a challenge. Do you have any strategies or tips for maintaining a healthy work-life balance, especially in a high-paced field like this?
I think it's one of those physician heal thyself. Sometimes I need to take my own advice, but I would say making sure that you're getting outside, getting fresh air and getting your blood flowing and getting charged up for the day. So working out in the morning before your body figures out what you're doing. And it's definitely advice I need to take. It's very easy to fall off that course. I think getting organized, a clear desk, whether it's virtual or physical, will give you a clear mind. So if you can get in and you need to, clear up email and make sure that when you're starting and you're able to sit in meetings, you can be in the moment and paying attention, not distracted by all the other noise, whether that noise is paper on your desk or a very, overflowing inbox. So I think that that's super important. I try to clear my inbox before the day because I do tend to then start feeling overwhelmed by what I haven't been able to get to. I definitely recommend that. Also, as the day's wrapping up, I try to give myself a little bit of a punch list so that I can know what things I need to attack the next day. So not just what's on my calendar, but prioritizing how I want my day to flow and the things that I need to get done. And this is one that I'm horrible at, but I'm trying to get better. And it's making sure to bake in time to recharge and step away from your desk during the day. I think you should always take lunch, reset, take a deep breath, stretch. When you get back, you'll be recharged and happier. And it's going to be much better than you sitting there doom scrolling or whatever it is that you're doing on your phone. Get up and move.
Well, it's amazing how you can adapt to all these environments and remain calm and then de-stress at the end of the day and create that spark of joy. So let me tell you, AI is not going to replace you, Colleen.
Please, God.
So you've shared so many valuable insights today. Is there one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember?
Before you rip things up and start over, try to understand why you are where you are now. I always make sure that when we go into a process, I don't discount what they're currently doing because there's generally reason behind it. So I try to understand the current solution before we build a new one. The easiest way for us to identify where there might be gaps in a particular process is to discuss how and more importantly, why you're performing tasks up to now. Sometimes people don't know why they're doing something a certain way. And it's because Joe told me to do it that way when I started. But I think it's really, really important to understand where you were before you can move forward.
Well, that is great. And if listeners want to learn more about you or Initium Software, where can they find you online?
You can find us on LinkedIn and on our website at www.iswhub.com. You can connect with us individually by going to our About Us page.
Well, thank you so much, Colleen. You are that spark of joy that Marie Kondo so eloquently talks about. And thank you for joining us, sharing your knowledge. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Steve.